I mentioned your new title, and with that comes with a little bit wider scope of a coverage universe, now including Nvidia. How do you see the political debate around selling chips in China? Is there risk around that now, more so than ever, because of the relationship that Trump's going to have with the Chinese?
Yeah, I think it's a bargaining chip, because Trump, Musk, everyone knows there's only one game in town, it's Nvidia, right? It's Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, and this is going to give them more negotiating power in terms of chips into China. And it's something that's going to ultimately play out. You saw the tariffs. I think it's had a contained impact on Nvidia, but it continues to be our belief this is all setting up for a golden age of AI, not just for Nvidia, but for broader tech. But it's a bargaining chip as they negotiate with Beijing.
What about, lastly, and then I got to go, Nvidia, what is next week, the earnings, right? What do we think about this heading in?
Get the popcorn, get the watch parties ready. I mean, this is going to be a jaw dropper. I think Street's still underestimating in terms of where numbers go over the next 1-2 years. I think this is one. They will battle, but ultimately $4 trillion market cap is on the horizon.
In an electrifying triumph, Nvidia has once again reached unprecedented heights in the stock market, as if the only limit is the sky itself. With the unstoppable force of artificial intelligence bolstering its ascent, Nvidia continues to enthrall investors and skeptics alike. The dynamics are fascinating. Driven by AI's roaring adoption, Nvidia's valuation soared in 2024, up a staggering 200%. Major players like Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet are funneling enormous resources into AI, promising continuous growth. Amidst this backdrop, the question looms: has Nvidia truly reached its zenith, or is there yet another peak on the horizon? Hold tight as we delve deeper into this unfolding market phenomenon. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
Let's take a check on shares of Nvidia this morning. Piper Sandler naming the stock a top large cap pick and saying it's a must own for the ramp up of its Blackwell chip, rating that stock an overweight with the price target of $175. The price today, $148.17.
You mentioned some of the hyperscalers, guys. Nvidia, a couple nice notes. One is Piper makes it a top pick. And then this Melius note is pretty interesting. Ben writes this goes to 185. He says, we're even more excited about Blackwell than we were before. Giving up on Nvidia with Hopper, meaning the current cycle, Ben says, is like giving up on Apple after iPhone 1 or 2. And they've got some fresh estimates, David, on hyperscaler CapEx. 282 is their number.
282
billion
over what period of time?
Year on year. It'd be up 24 year on year. And that's including Oracle, Amazon, Meta. I'm not sure how it compares to some of the Morgan Stanley numbers we got.
That was over 100. Yeah, I mean, right. They were 300. That's right. Yeah, I got to check the numbers. Something has been interesting, though, that I've sort of been trying to focus on. There was an information story from last week. I also listened to this podcast that Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz do. It was actually done prior to the election, but it has nothing to do with that. It was about, or at least they raised the idea that the progress of the large language models, particularly at OpenAI, is slowing dramatically from one model to the next, so to speak. And the information in the story also talks about Orion. That's the upcoming flagship model, I guess its code name there. Its performance did exceed that of prior models, but the increase in quality was far smaller compared with the jump between ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4. Those are the last two models, of course. And Andreessen said the same thing on that podcast. I just flagging it because it's kind of interesting. Are they running out of data? What is the reason? Is it true? Is there really a slowing in progress? Because that wasn't expected. If in fact, and they're using as many or more CPUs, so it's not like it's a chip-related issue. It simply may be either a data-related issue or unclear. Certainly, for me, unclear, Carl. But that would have big ramifications if the progress suddenly stops.
I know. The other, and not to get too far afield from what you're saying, Andreessen tweeted the other day, called America an economic coiled spring.
Saw that.
We should be growing at least 4, and ideally 6 to 8+% on GDP. He says growth has been brutally suppressed since before I was born. That would be interesting. But then we get back to these. We had these discussions during the first Trump term, and that is you need people. And how are you going to get that kind of growth without people?
Right. Well, maybe it's going to be robots.
Generative AI.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
But maybe if it stops progressing, Sarah, that's the point. Listen, I'll listen to Mark Andreessen and many other experts on this, certainly Jensen. I have no idea, but that story, citing people at ChatGPT as the sources, and then Andreessen just basically saying it on the podcast as well, I thought was interesting.
It is because we all think it's on a one-way ticket,
correct.
faster and higher.
Correct. I mean, and by the way, the rate of change will only increase exponentially.
From an outsider's perspective, NVIDIA's ascension is like a thrilling amusement park ride, with ups so high they give you a view of the whole park. As the stock market takes another unexpected turn, one might jest, at this rate, NVIDIA is not just mining for AI gold, they're crafting the entire vault. But humor aside, what's driving this relentless surge in NVIDIA's stock performance? To truly appreciate the current state of AI and NVIDIA's central role, let's take a look at the infrastructure fueling it. The world's tech giants, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet, recently reaffirmed their commitment to spending heavily on AI advancements. Those investments predominantly enhance servers and data centers, the backbone of AI's mass implementation. Meta Platforms, riding on its vast customer data, also concurs with the hefty investments towards AI through its Llama AI model. If any evidence was needed of AI's strength, recent numbers from companies like Palantir Technologies and Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing paint a vivid picture. Palantir's third-quarter performance outstripped expectations, showcasing a revenue jump by 30%, driven by an unrelenting demand for AI. Meanwhile, TSMC's year-over-year revenue increased 39%, underlined by skyrocketing demand for AI-related technology. Central to this ecosystem is Nvidia, whose GPUs form the crux of many AI applications. Originally designed for gaming, Nvidia's GPUs have seamlessly transitioned into powering demanding computational tasks necessary for AI development. With a stranglehold on 98% of the data center GPU market over the past 2 years, Nvidia's revenant presence in the field cannot be overstated. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with Nvidia's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates.
Welcome back to Fast Money. Taiwan Semiconductor shares falling today after Reuters reported that the chipmaker was ordered by U.S. authorities to stop AI chip shipments to China. The news coming after one of Taiwan Semi's products was found in a Huawei chipset last month. Other major chip makers also sliding today. Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom, Intel, and Qualcomm all finishing lower to start the week. Dan, you were looking at this.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we've heard for a while. There's a black market for these chips, and they're finding their way into Chinese electronics. I guess the most important thing here is how far China is behind the U.S. in the designs and the like here. So pretty interesting stuff. And the fact that this is coming out right now, I know that the U.S. government and Commerce Department or whatever, they've made these sorts of proclamations before, but it does have the potential to kind of ratchet up the kind of dialogue with China at a time where we're also have the new administration considering 60% tariffs across the board, that sort of thing. So this is definitely one to keep a close eye on.
Yeah, I mean, the chip sector across the board gave up some of the gains made last week.
It did, and we've talked about this, has not made new highs to the S&P for a long time. It really goes back to June and July. You had kind of a double top, and if you're one of these people that like head and shoulders formations, you might have one here. I think we've been kind of sideways, and I think NVIDIA's kind of hung tough like the new kids, but I do think it's a case where you have to be watching this leadership. I'm not sure you can get this kind of leadership out of meme stocks, and I think we're going to need this back.
I'm not sure if this is all this Taiwan Semi news or it's, this issue of is the promise of AI really there? We're going to see it when NVIDIA reports. And it's had a huge run going into this.
That's true.
It's interesting. So the incoming president's rhetoric around Taiwan, they're going to have to pay for their own defense, which means Taiwan, I think, is going to wind up buying F-35s and Patriot missiles from the United States to show that, we're willing to play ball. Right. Which is going to infuriate the Chinese. So you start to play this through and wonder how the whole thing shakes out, which has been the existential risk to Taiwan Semi and maybe NVIDIA the whole time.
In fiscal 2025's second quarter, NVIDIA reported record-setting revenue of $30 billion, a 122% increase year over year. Earnings per share soared by an impressive 168%. However, Wall Street's collective eyebrows were raised, pondering over NVIDIA's gross margin slip from 78.4% to 75.1% and a seemingly less dramatic forecast for revenue growth. Financial experts, including Rosenblatt's Hans Mosesmann, maintain an unwavering faith in Nvidia's future, even addressing current valuations that might raise investors' apprehension. According to the consensus, Nvidia's stock is a resounding buy. Current estimates suggest that Nvidia could merely be scratching the surface, with projections of earnings escalating into fiscal 2026. Morgan Stanley's Joseph Moore further set the stage for what lies ahead, hinting at Blackwell chips being a critical revenue driver despite current supply constraints. Nvidia's potential forays into autonomous vehicles and AI PCs present diverse avenues for growth. As they fortify their data center dominance and unleash new chip innovations, Nvidia continues to crystallize its supremacy in AI technology. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang speaking at the Bipartisan Policy Center in Washington, D.C. this hour. Let's get to Seema Modi. She's got the key takeaways. He's talking a lot, and we monitor everything he says.
He really is. And the topic of this conversation, something that you like to talk about, AI and the scarcity of power. This discussion was in D.C. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang acknowledged the strain of the AI boom on the grid and explained that before the industry uses AI, the teaching or training process consumes a lot of energy because there is a lot of trial and error, but he also expects demand for power to only increase over time. Listen in.
These data centers could consume today maybe 100 megawatts, and in the future it'll probably be several, 10 times, 20 times more than that. It doesn't have to necessarily be built in one place, but the amount of data that we're going to train it with, and these AI models are going to use synthetic data.
Huang said to accommodate this increase in demand, the industry needs to do a couple things: rely more on renewable energy, build data centers closer to energy sources, and demystify the importance of AI to policymakers, and partner with governments to tackle this power issue and get better at using smart grids as a central command center to dispatch energy more efficiently. On that note, one of the beneficiaries not mentioned in this chat but is getting more attention on Wall Street is GE Vernova. It hit a new high just yesterday and now up over 80% since spinning off from General Electric in April. Of course, specializes in smart grids. Back to NVIDIA. You were mentioning that media tour, David. Huang has been very public in the last couple of weeks since the company reported disappointing earnings on August 28th. Speaking at Goldman's Communacopia, Dreamforce, and now today in D.C., it has coincided with a strong rebound in NVIDIA shares, up about 12% since early September. The broader semiconductor ETF up about 10% since this month. And that China stimulus helping this sector, too. They've got that exposure, Sarah.
The buzz around Nvidia is undeniably justified, as it carves out an empire in the burgeoning field of AI. As we digest analysts' predictions and the palpable enthusiasm in Wall Street's collective voice, the million-dollar question becomes whether this is the opportune moment to invest. Nvidia's stock remains a formidable force, perched to leap even higher with the ongoing Blackwell chip developments and the persistent AI demand. Predictions indicate robust growth, possibly making Nvidia a compelling choice for forward-thinking investors. As the landscape evolves and Nvidia positions itself for the next growth phase, the company's status is nothing short of a market juggernaut. Are you ready to embark on this exhilarating financial journey, or will you remain a bystander? With Nvidia, the line between risk and reward blurs enticingly. What's your move? Share your thoughts on this market marvel, and let's continue this investment dialogue. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen.